Hey, hello everyone. 안녕하세요. Welcome all to the PAMS Salon. The topic for today is new and different roles of theater and its new possibilities in the post-pandemic era. My name is Lin Fu, an independent curator and consultant of performing arts and your moderator today. And I am zooming in from my home in Shanghai. A little bit of visual description of myself. I'm an Asian woman in my 30s. I have a round face, shoulder length dark hair, and I'm wearing glasses and a pink shirt today. And my preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers. So today's session will run for approximately 65 minutes. We have three wonderful panelists joining us today. They are Almut Wagner, Chief Dramaturg from Residence Theater, Munich from Germany. And we have Ian Lan, Program Manager from Hong Kong Arts Center. And last but not the least, Daki Kim, Head of Production Team, Seoul Performing Arts Company. So each of our panelists today will give us a short presentation reflecting on our topic for about 10 minutes. Later, we will have a discussion followed by a Q&A session. So if you have any questions to ask the speakers or any comments, we encourage you to leave it on Swapcard or YouTube, whichever platform that you're tuning in from, and I'll make sure we get to them later. So without further ado, I'd like to start from Germany. Almut, over to you.
Yes, hello, welcome. I'm here in Munich at the Residenztheater, and I'm very happy to be in touch with you far away. And I would like to start my presentation, and I hope it will work. In the corona pandemic, Residenztheater invented like a new branch, which was called Resi Sendet, which is maybe to be translated by Resi Broadcast. And this was some programs which we used to be worked. For example, we made a daily diary from the actors who did small films. We streamed performances. We talked to people on the phone. We did a lot of activities, and under this headline. I hope that now I can go on. Now it stops. Sorry. I don't know why. I can't. I hope you can see the other.
It's working.
I would like just to present my theater. So the Residenztheater is the Bavarian State Theater, and it has three venues. The Residenztheater, which you can see from outside and inside. It was rebuilt after war in the 50s. And we have the Marstall, which is the old stalls of the castle. And we have a jewel of Rococo style, the Cuvier's Theater. And normally we invite our audience to these three very different venues. I have to say that the Residenztheater is more a traditional theater. It's also the audience is quite, it's a lot of tradition. We also have young people, but it's also very popular with the Munich audience to go to Residenztheater, something special. We have a huge ensemble of 50 fixed actresses and actors, and we have a repertoire system that means we normally play each night at the different theaters at different shows. And so also, we have to say that when we are not since a long time here. When we came here, the Residenztheater was not very well equipped technically. For example, there was no video department, and when Corona came, we had to work a lot from the very basics to organize all of these programs. I'm talking about now. Yeah, first of all, we had I would like to speak about a collaboration with Korea, Borderline. It was a collaboration which was planned a long time ago, and it's with the actors from Korea and one actor of the Residenztheater, and it was planned to have live performances in Munich and in Seoul, and there have been rehearsals on Zoom but also live last summer, and we were very positive that the actors could come over, but then we found out that it wasn't possible, and this was really like a big experiment also for our theater and the technical department, and we had 5 very good performances via Zoom. That means the actor, the German actor, was playing live on the stage in Germany with the audience, and the actors from Korea were broadcast on the screen, and it really worked very well the collaboration, because they had a common rehearsal time in Korea before. Otherwise, maybe it wouldn't have been possible. And I'm very happy that now we have the other way around. So in November, you will have live performances in Seoul with the actors from Korea. And Florian, our actor, is on a rehearsal stage and is doing the other way around. So this is maybe, it was a really experiment. We were very nervous about this, but it worked very well, I have to say. And it's also a production about borders. And so we had also to go over borders, different borders. But in fact, what we did the most, we did small performances via Zoom, and always monologues. And maybe this is the debut was a production based on Georg Büchner's text Lens, and one actress, she performed it at her wardrobe dressing room, and she always invites 5 people from the audience to her dressing room, and is really a communication in a strong communication with the audience, who are having their screen on and also their microphone, and it's always a talk after this. So and also Lynn was asking me was maybe the most impressive issue about these 2 performances was really that people gather from all over the world and exchange afterwards. So they go together to the theater, and also sometimes they say it's even closer to have the actor closer to themselves than when they go to the theater, because it's a direct communication. And when they go to the theater, there's stage and the distance, and yeah, so this is really something that worked very well also, but for a small audience. We invented also a production named The Abyss by Davide Enya. It's a play about the situation of the refugees, African refugees on Lampedusa. And so there we built a real set for this, as you can see, and worked with 2 cameras. So Lens was very simple. It's only with the camera of the laptop of the actress. And this, we developed it a bit more, like also again, Florian in a dressing room, who played a play which is called Super Spreader. And last but not least, the last one was Rex Osterwald. It was about a politician from the right wing, and we put it on the program just before the elections now. And there we worked also with additional video material, which we incorporated in the production. Yeah, so another form of art was planned by a young set designer, Luis Panizza, who thought about how can we cope with the loneliness, and when the actors are not there, and he made life-size posters of all our actors, and invented an installation where you go in one by one for 10 minutes, and you can, it's a game with distance, and it says it's working very emotionally on what you can tell about being a community or not, or being there or being real. But it's like going to an installation in a museum. It's not a show, it's just a one-to-one yes, installation. And yeah, this is the main productions we did in this pandemic time. We are working on a, now we can play for full audiences again, and people are coming back, not 100%, but they're really looking forward to have these real theater performances. And I have to say that this is also our main issue, that we invite the people again to our venues. But we are, for example, we are working now on very specific projects for the digital space. Like we are doing a film, producing now a film on the process of Adolf Eichmann, who was responsible for the Holocaust and the murder of 6 million of Jews. And we want to do this in a digital version because we really want to have an audience which is international, to have a young audience who is really more addicted to these digital forms. And what I really like now also about these digital formats is that we get invitations from international festivals. We made also a small series which we sold to Chile, and we were invited by a Polish festival, and we performed Lens there. So it's very interesting to play with these formats, and to figure out what is possible for the future. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alma, for your generous sharing, for all of these inspiring and fascinating projects that your theater is doing during the pandemic. Just on the side note, the Borderline, that German-Korean co-production that you introduced earlier, that's like all because I heard like the Korean actors, they need to tune in at 2 a.m. to like kind of to make it happen, which is really fun. Well, I will have more questions for you later at the discussion session. So next, I'd like to move on to Ian.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Ahmed. This is really a pleasure for me to share the work that we are doing in Hong Kong Art Center. Although I have one project to share, but I kind of try to elaborate into a 10 minutes presentation. I hope to share some thought about that with you all. So let me just quickly share screen. Yep. So the way a quick introduction about myself. I'm Ian. I'm working in Art Center, and Art Center is a non-governmental organization in Hong Kong. If you Google us, or if you click the website, then you'll see we are a multi-art house. We have a cinema, we have a medium-sized theater, about 400 seats. We also have a black box and a 2 floors, almost like 4,000 square feet of gallery. So by design, our architecture allow us to embody different art forms, not just theater, but also moving images, visual art, and literature, music, and dance. So my role is more from a performing art angle, but as well as public art and audience development. So the way I talk about things kind of always in, I would say, cloudiness, a state of where all this boundary kind of blur. And I don't quite know how to describe my my own thinking, but I try to do it in this PowerPoint here. So maybe let's start with just some quick survey about what's going on in the pandemic time and what's going on also being made available to us as a performing art practitioner. So just run through some quick example. I think one of the impact that we felt in Hong Kong is the introduction of some converging console where light sound can be made in one panel, and it significantly reduced the time that we need in moving in and doing setup. So we can do light plotting and sound plotting with the same console, and then strictly follow with sound balancing, technical adjustment, performance. So everything can be done by one people, and so you can expect there is a lot more time saving, and the designer can try out a lot of things like on the spot really quickly, promptly and instantaneously. Another thing I would like to talk about is the advancement in terms of what is being seen, what we can see, what we can essentially feel the progress of technology in theater setting. So one of the technology, I think the Hong Kong upcoming Performing Arts Center, which is the East Kowloon Performing Arts Center, they have brand themselves and also flagged out themselves as one of the most advanced in terms of technology and making art and tech crossover production. And one of the system they buy is called the Black Tracks. And the Black Tracks essentially is something that you walk in a space and it will automatically track your actors or dancer or musician, and it serves the signal into a disguise server, and that server can give real-time tracking and activate certain events or projection or follow spotting or going up and down the volume or making some scene change. So it's really, really convenient, and this is something that we can really see is happening now. So one of the quick question is, or obvious answer to this question is, how does technology enhance creativity? Well, one of which is what we cover is time. And you can foresee the lighting designer and setting designer, they can spend a lot more time in the creative process, and in the execution, it would be really just simple and operated by one personnel. But what happened also in terms of the space, I also wanted to cover that. And I think I'm just surveying like this obvious example. Some of you might have already experienced it yourself, in YouTube, their concert, Kanye West and Jay-Z in pop music, and also dance and projection mapping in Hakanai, or the wearable gadgets where the sensor would activate according to your body gesture. I think these are already existing technology, and many of the art forms, especially music and mass entertainment, is also using it already. But what actually is, if technology is so beautiful, right? Save us time and expand our spaces. And I have not even mentioned about the virtual space. I'm just literally talking about the space that expand beyond when we are actually in the concert hall, in the theater. It could, wow, immediately create another 3-dimension. And still, I think what puzzles us as a performing art producer, I think I share that with many of our colleagues in this section here, is it's still unsettling, right? You still feel a bit of alienation. You feel this coldness. You don't necessarily feel the warmth. So maybe I would argue is an issue of the loss of human touch, where many cases where the technology advancement is so mesmerizing and overwhelming in senses that it takes away our attention to what we actually cherish in the conventional or legacy of theater experience. But what is that exactly? Like, is it a liveliness? Well, how do we define liveliness? What do we really mean by that words? To me, it's really a desire to connect. And I I guess from Elmer's presentation, the Borderline Project is a very good example of having this connection, not just in terms of Zoom, but you are also giving something. You're also giving out, you're also sharing, you're also performing. And in that sense, you do a reciprocal exchange. It's like exchange of give and courtesy. It's a way of communication. So if we establish that liveliness, if it comes down to the bottom, is a desire to connect, then what are we exactly connecting to and from? My argument is this is where we try from individual, we wanted to collect and connect to a collectivism, a collective where we have all shared experience. This is exactly what happened in the pandemic time. I mean, the COVID restrict our social distancing. Everyone is forced into their silo, and then desire to connect just use even more. And actually, when we are being siloed, we are all experiencing the same thing. We are all wearing masks. We are all having meetings, a lot of panel or a lot of interview or meetings through Zoom or Google Meet or some other gadgets or devices. So when that happened, I wanted to look at the space that really enables that. Zoom is one space, the one virtual space. But if we withhold our impulse to immediately look at what performing arts is offering or what can we do in performing art, I would like to borrow some cases from public art and architecture, because that's something I also work on. So from Superkillen in Copenhagen or from in the Tate Modern in UK, I mean, this example shows the intervention in a space could immediately make a space special, right? Is a classic example of placemaking, but at the same time, it's very passive. Like it has to wait people to walk in, to use it, and use it in a creative way to generate meaning, to have that connection. And exactly is that connection made it even more beautiful and add value to it. So what about the performing art? From my research, some months ago, I come across this theater from Ukraine. I think maybe some of you have experienced or joined this movement. It's called Together at the Same Time. It's a collection of theater flash mob. So from the right-hand corner, you see many smaller scenes. Some of the acts are reciting the same play at the same time. Some of them are doing a same act at the same time. Let's say, for example, they might be drinking a tea alongside their window pane and looking out, thinking about what does it feel like to be isolated in your own room. So they kind of time it and do it all over the world at the same time. And they rehearse it, like it's a proper production, but all do it by yourself in your own room. And I find it quite touching to me. So to me, even just as a bystander, I'm touched by looking at how many people are trying to do their very best to connect. Even, it's so separated through a monitor or from a desktop. But also there is, even before of COVID, like this theater show, The Home, I think they already, our professional already looked at how time could overlap in the same space, like how past, present, and future all overlaps in the same space. And we experience different overlapping timeline. So what I'm trying to get is from all these 4 examples, I think there is a great potential to have this hybridity. But where this hybridity of online, offline, physical space and virtual space lead us to, I would argue, to paraphrase from Freire and Moore, theater is the arena to rehearse change. And so to me, COVID or our situation that surrounds us, the society is changing quickly, our political landscape, our, the policy, many things are changing. I think at a pace that faster than even we can comprehend. So I think there's also an urgency to look at this issue and how we could use this hybridity to address those issues. And allow me to quote one more example from Ontruan Holt. And I mean, our European partners would know them well. And they have been quite a frequent appearance in Hong Kong Art Festival as well. But why I try to quote them? Because I think even before the COVID time, I think they did a pretty good job at connecting the individual and the collective. Say, for example, in Fight Night, they want to talk about voting. What is voting? And they just, remake this whole process and let the audience vote on stage, and they could vote out the actors. And this voting also has a consequence on themselves as a whole, as audience who gets to stay and who gets to exit. So I guess this is a pretty good example in how this hybridity has the potential, because of this COVID and technology and advancement, to further multiply that effect to people outside of those people who got the tickets, but also those people who were watching from their home. So what we did in Art Center is we want to look at how this hybrid of possibility could actually add value to what we are doing already in Art Center. One of the programs that we do, I think many theater houses also do that, is a theater lab, playwright studio, is for playwright to do workshop and reading. They could, the script may not be complete, but they could invite directors and designers to massage the work and have a preliminary showcase. So the legacy mode is they just happen in our black box and we sell ticket and people come and share their mind and they share their opinion. So what we do essentially is we just try to connect what's available already online. A website called Slido.com. Slido enable us to do live question and live polling. So on one level, we can have the audience to have some warm-up question. Like say, for example, if the play is about speed dating apps, and maybe the play is about a father and son using the same dating app and date the same girl without knowing. So before the show, we could ask the audience, have they used any speed dating apps before? And what are their takes on issues like open relationship? What are their takes on love at first sight? Things like that. And the beauty of it is the audience doesn't need to download anything. They just scan the QR code, type in the slido.com, and then they just input hashtag L944 in that case. And they could jump in immediately. And they could all share anonymously and see how the audience in the same room are reacting. And we were doing that show also by live streaming. So the online audience are also doing the same polling. So just one quick question, then people could all vote, and we could collect all the feedback from online and offline and do run some polling. Another example is you see some shredding, the people shredding some paper. In this show, the playwright designed to invite the audience to activate some memory of a self. This self has written a series of memory of himself. And then he asked the audience to come out and recall that memory and then put it under the paper shredders. So the whole body of audience are selecting some of the memory, they are reciting it, and they help the fictional protagonist to shred the memory. It's a kind of echoing to what's been happening here in Hong Kong. The theater makers wanted to erase many of his memory, and but he couldn't do it himself. So he invite the audience to do it for him. So I guess the reason I bring up this, and also this beautiful, handsome gentleman, Johnny Depp, is because we are also thinking of a next project, adopting the same legacy or DNA that we adopted in the Playwright Studio. hybridity of online and offline, but we also want to think in terms of content, in terms of what I just described. The theater makers are essentially, he is breaking down himself, breaking down his memory into pieces, and then we wanted to bring that into the next level. Can we upload our consciousness in the same sense that you know me through Zoom and you know me through this square monitor? And this is the way that I choose to show you. This is the way that you understand from my voluntary contribution of my appearance, my intelligence, or whatever information that I choose to show. So it's very one-dimensional, it's very fragmented. So what if we can upload these theater makers, like his works or his philosophy, his principle, and just upload it online, just like the movie Transcendence. And we invite exactly as a semblance of Waterline, you invite artists from around the world to rehearse or play that consciousness. Some of them may be some playwriting works from these theater makers, and they could use their own way to interpret it, to act it out or to perform it. And at the same time, we as an audience can choose to contribute our opinion or comment. And at the same time, the people online can also contribute, like what are their interpretation of those who perform that the consciousness that the protagonist choose to show. The reason I showed kind of this conceptual, this is a work in progress. It's called A Fragmented Self Interneting. It's resting on this idea. So we don't just want to create a space where we just have this whole curated experience for our audience online and offline. But we also want to invite them to connect to a collective experience. So polling is one of the collective experiences. Collective breathing can also be a collective experience. Collective meditation, collective mental exercise could also be collective action. And at the end, we want to combine everyone's interpretation or their perspective or this fictional self, and to puzzle these figures again, like from our perspective, from those from online and from those content that we prepared in the theater, and we kind of interwoven them like netting and put them back together and see what we find. So this is an experience not just in terms of we produce some content for audience to consume. We also rest a lot on how we bring in the audience experience and their autonomy, and they feel they become a part of something bigger, and they also share what others is experiencing at this COVID time. I'm a bit overrun, so sorry about that. If you're interested to look me up or talk about the project further, you can find me here on hkac.org.hk. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Ian. I'm so reluctant to stop you because it's so rich and inspiring. Thank you for walking us through these different perspectives of technology and also possibilities of hybrid and theater. And so, yeah, we're going to get back to you with more questions later. Next, let's welcome Doki to share with us his talk.
Hello everyone, I'm in Korea. I'm producer and my name is Taki Kim. Hello everyone, I'm producer and my name is Taki Kim. I'm not part of theater. I'm actually from Seoul Performing Arts Company. This is a national group in the arts sector. So it's not theater, but still, I'm here to talk about the changing role of theater and seeking new potential in the pandemic era. So in the past 1.5 years, we witnessed the pandemic. I'm going to talk about the quick changes in Korea. And I'm going to focus on video clips of performances because it played a big part. And I'm also going to talk about what will happen to the video clips in performing arts sector. So it's been 1.5 years. So many things happened, right? So I don't think I will be able to cover them in 10 minutes. I think I already have like 9 minutes left, but I'll do my best. Before jumping into the topic, what's ironic is that in Korea, there was growing attention to immersive theater. Even before the pandemic, we were paying attention to immersive theater. We were trying for immersive performances in and out of theater in Korea. But due to the pandemic, we had to go for contact-free performances. And I think this is also linked to performances and shows out of theater, but there's lack of linkage, which is a little disappointing. And yes, let's talk about the pandemic and putting performance arts in video. I believe many countries were in similar situation as in Korea. But what happened before the pandemic? As I mentioned, there were videos being used in performing arts sector in Korea even before the pandemic. First, video was used for archiving purposes. Second, there were similar programs in Korea, and there were programs in Korea to make sure that people who are in remote areas can access performances. In other words, video was utilized to offer cultural experiences to those who do not live in large cities. And then with the pandemic, theaters closed their doors. So there are many people, more people, who cannot go to theaters due to the pandemic. So we began using archives. We began playing the videos on online platforms. And this was led by public institutions. Public institutions wanted to offer more cultural experience to the people in Korea. More about transition to video. There was short-term goal. We thought after the pandemic we'll be able to invite people to the theater again. So we wanted to make sure that people will continue to pay attention to theater. But as you know, the pandemic is still persisting. And we cannot offer free video clips forever, right? We need to charge fees. At first, there was no fee. But now there is transition to pay to view video, as you can see in the slide. This was led by both public and the private sectors. As I'm from national organization, we thought we need to serve as test bed for the private sector as well. So we also led projects in this sector. Why does it matter to charge a fee? It matters for artistic groups in private sector. They do not have revenue due to the pandemic. Why does it matter for public sector? So far, we didn't have revenue because we didn't charge any fee. But we need to also consider IP, rights of creators. If we do not charge a fee, we cannot protect the rights of the creators. That's why we made the transition to charge a fee. This is linked to protection of creators and protection of producers as well. So we reached consensus in this sector. And we also needed technical support to make it possible. In Korea, there's a large corporation called Naver. Ironically, this company was very important in this regard because this company had a lot of revenues under the pandemic. And this large corporation wanted to make contribution to society. So Naver participated in this project to upload videos on platform and charge fees as well. Without the support by large corporation, it wouldn't have been possible to expedite the process. In around September, we were able to utilize platform by Neighbor to play video with charge. In the past, we only used video clips to store them in the archive, but after the pandemic, we are charging fee and we are playing the video clip in performing arts sector. The images are from Seoul Performing Arts Company. So we began with providing online streamed video, and we also used those videos to play them in theater, actual theater. In the beginning, the videos were streamed online, but we began to play video in theater as well. Theaters can play video, and it can be also in the format of video on demand and OTT, right? So these are some of the unexpected results. Schools and educational institutions also wanted to view videos in groups. This was not expected. So there were group events involving school or institutions. General audience, the general public, were able to have this contact with theater with the video clips. So they are now content. They are not just for archive, which means we needed to enhance quality of each video. There were two perspectives in this context. First, we needed better resolution and better audio quality because they're going to be part of our service. Quality matters, and there's something more. Now, video clips are more than just content on archive, so we needed more editing, which means the role of editor became more important. Still, video is two-dimensional experience, and it cannot really replace our immersive experience in theater. So people started to pay attention to video clips, but there are more consequences which I will further explain. There are new possibilities and multiple areas we can explore. Let me touch on a few of them. We have web musical now. It's musical, but it is in web format, and it is shorter. This musical is not for theater. It contains 10 to 20 minutes of video clips. And this musical is on online platform. This is, of course, some people might think it's the same with musical film, but we need to note that this also has characteristics of performance. There are new formats emerging in web musical. This is a new genre which is still expanding. Also, more about combination of performance and technology. What's particularly notable is that there is combination of performance and game. I'm running out of time, so I'm trying to be on time. Last year, there was a performance situated in game, a game called Battleground. In Battleground, 100 users need to kill each other on the game, of course. But here, 100 users didn't have to kill each other. They just kind of killed themselves in the end, which happened in the gaming platform. So this is what we did in Korea. More examples about immersive experience using VR. You're now looking at the pictures of a project called Scarecrow by Korea National University of Arts. Audience were able to have more interactive experience with VR technology. I believe there's more to come. This is still an area that requires more improvement. There are some technical limitations. If we want to have VR on actual stage, we need to improve further. I'm going to touch on Metaverse, which is online platform. It is shared online platform. These are some examples of pop culture on Metaverse platforms. They are performances, but they were situated on Metaverse. As I just mentioned, for now, performances on Metaverse are experimental. I think maybe what we need is a different type of approach at this point. What can we do on Metaverse? It might be difficult to hold performance on Metaverse, but we can still use this virtual platform. This is another virtual space. We can offer experience that is related to theater, but that is not happening in theater. For instance, our audience cannot visit theater now, but what if they can visit Metaverse? They can still meet performance on Metaverse. It's like people watch video clip and then they actually visit theater. When people experience performance on Metaverse, it can be translated into their visit to theater. For instance, we can build virtual theater and virtual stage on Metaverse. Our actors can appear as avatars. We can hold concert on Metaverse. People can try out character costumes on Metaverse as well. I believe this can serve as linkage with the performances in theaters. We had a show named Lost Face 1895, and there will be show on SKT platform next year. I'm going to be on time. Well, contact-free performance appeared more quickly because of the pandemic, I believe. And we need to pay attention to new methods and where theater stands in the new context. Are they going to be threats for us? Maybe not. Maybe we can use new technologies to attract audience who didn't visit theater before. This can be used as methodologies to attract wider spectrum of audience. Maybe we shouldn't be too skeptical about technologies. So I think this is something that requires further attention. For longer discussion, I will continue that in the Q&A session. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Doki, for sharing with us what's been happening in Korea. Always eye-opening. I think with Korea has probably the most fast internet speed in the world. There's always a lot of like innovation in technology and the internet world. So yes, so let's jump directly into the discussion session because we have about 15 minutes left. I don't want to waste any time because there are a lot of questions coming up. So the first question I have for Ducky, so I'm actually very curious to know that except for expanding the audience experience with the use of verse, did by into example traditional game, and have you also challenged with
I think there was technical issue, but I think I heard part of the question before, so let me answer the question. About the outcome, the result, I explained the approaches, but they do not have outcome yet. I think it is a little difficult to talk about the outcomes of our approaches. So we had audience in the past, but there were people who didn't visit the theater before. I think the new technologies can pose opportunities to let them, invite them, so that they can come to theater. There were challenges to some people when it comes to visiting theater, but technologies might serve as bridge between the general public and the theater. And next year in April, we're planning on having virtual theater. We're going to have virtual theater on Metaverse next year. I think we need more than one work on Metaverse. It requires more than one work to lead to more significance. So let's imagine there are groups, there are works. If we have 100 or 200 of them on Metaverse, what will happen? What if people can become avatars on Metaverse and we can enter virtual space? What if we can communicate on virtual space? It could be really attractive. It could be really attractive option. And I think people will be even able to try out characters' costume on Metaverse. I think it's really meaningful for creator and also for audience. And this can be also translated into actual visit to theater. I think I have great expectation for expansion of Metaverse in this regard. Did I answer your question?
Thank you, Doki. I'm sorry, I had some technical issues, so I was bumped up for a minute, but now I'm rejoining. So yeah, thank you, Doki, for your answer. Let's continue. The next question is for Almut, because you shared a lot of examples of Zoom theaters that your theater has been doing since the pandemic started. I'm wondering, do you think Zoom theater will stay and be part of our new normal? And why is that? Thank you.
Yes, I think it will stay because, as I told before, I think that people really like to have this kind of personal attention, and also to be in a small group where you can communicate directly. And I mean, we will always say it's better to be together in one room and share the experience there. But we made so good experiences, and we really want to also to address people who can't come to the theater, maybe because they're in another country, or they can't, or they're living in remote areas, or I think we have to find out how it will work in future. But we will work on this. It's not our main issue, I have to say. There are other, free companies also who are more into that, but we will follow away with very specific projects. And it also it will determine the international collaboration very much, because we thought, for me as also a festival curator for years, traveling was so normal, and now before each trip you hesitate before you book your flight. And also we talk a lot about this in the International Theatre Institute, for example, how the international work will be determined in future by new technologies, and to avoid also lots of trips.
Absolutely. Thank you, Almut. I think I'll stop being selfish. I can't just ask my questions. I like to open it to the floor, because we do have a lot of questions from our audience. So the first question is for Ian. And it was very interesting to see how Hong Kong Arts Center reacts to the pandemic situation. The post-pandemic will also affect on the environment of performing arts scene. I'm curious about what's your plan and how you will develop future projects under the post-pandemic circumstance. This is from one of our audience.
Wow, thank you. I think that's a huge huge question. Try to break it down into one and try to give my quick answer to that. And I think in the way that we moving forward, especially on this topic on hybridity, for us it's really important that we bring in the audience, and it echoes to a higher level of belief of having decentralization. And I think what Ducky mentioned about metaverse is a result of we are not satisfied with the reality. We not necessarily hold grudge about it, but I think we just want more. And in the metaverse, we can do, we feel that freedom. We can build a whole central district in the decentral land, and I could just destroy it with a missile, or I could flood it. And just to show you that what happens with climate change rise for 1.5 more degrees Celsius. And so for us, I think if we are to really bring audience to theater, to art center, we have to give that impact of why it's important that you come here, and also open enough space for those can only join online, or they would rather join online, because it's actually giving them more intimacy, more security to join via a desktop. I mean, the technology or the fast 5G broadband network really enabled that for us to stream highly visual and highly demanding data content. And we can put, we can really well design as a show with a separate online package. So I think moving forward, in every program that we do, I think the online and an offline will essentially be in parallel and works in partners.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question is for all of you. Thank you for sharing your experience, how you deal with the pandemic. Your cases show the different approach of creation, process, and presenting the show. Could you share some cases how you physically change the venue space, such as changing the format of audience seating or technical experiment? Is there anything you can share in that? Who is ready can start first.
I can start if you like, yes. Did I get right how we changed the venues for
Yes.
after the corona? Okay.
Physical change.
Yes, for example, in our big house where we normally have 900 seats, we took out all the second row and reduced number of seats. So it was really another room in a way. It was very good for the legs because it was very comfortable to sit. Now we have them back because we can sell the full house in the Marstall, so experimental venue. We had to take out the tribune because the people were too close together and set them all on the floor, so we could on single chairs. And in fact, in this Rococo theater, we couldn't play it all because it was only allowed for 80 people, and it's very expensive to rent it for a day. So we had to react like very, how can I say, on a pragmatic way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can take up. Yeah, just like what Elmot was describing, I think because of the policy, space have to be, really distance against each other, 50% rule and 75 and then 100%. In terms of orientation, but I think it actually pushed us out of the venue. I mean, venue by the license, the performing space. So instead, we did a lot of stuff in the atrium. We also did live stream a lot of music series. We call it house music series. So we did it in the staircase, we did it in the landing, we did it with just outside of our lobby. So we have the backdrop of the Victoria Harbour and witnessing the magic hour happen. If not for the pandemic, I think we wouldn't spend so much effort, to spread out and have the audience to scatter around and explore our whole art center. It would still be very much in the conventional sense of small black box cinema and theater. So I guess in a way, it prompted us to move outwards. And now we're also thinking program to partner with individual or independent bookstore outside of art center.
And just a follow-up question on that, I'm curious, do you need to apply for like a permit for using that kind of unconventional spaces to do performance?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yes, the big yes, if we're doing in like non-art center space, but also it hinges on where are the audience. So if I'm doing a music concert in a bookstore and there is no live audience, but just online audience, then I don't need a permit. So this is a way we navigate around, and maybe we can make it really intimate, small, and maybe we can have a concert in our office. I don't know. I want to do that. I haven't yet been able to pull that off, but yeah, that's something to think about.
I see. Cool. Ducky, do you have anything to add to this question too?
Right, in Korea, in the past 1.5 years, we were not able to hold a lot of performances, but staff members were so busy. So shows were canceled, but we were busy. And the government was announcing guidelines every 2 weeks. Theaters had to close doors, we were able to open doors and then close doors, so we were always nervous. But this year, in Korea, we've been through confusion, we've been through the period of chaos. So we are on grade 4 in Seoul, which is indicating the most serious situation. Theaters can open, but the number of seats is limited. It's not 100%, but starting in this year, some performances are being held. I think this is important. Also, with the pandemic, I think many works were completed in short time period, and we were witnessing, we were able to make some changes.
Thank you, Ducky. The next question is for Almut. So during the pandemic time, many theater venues pivot or shift the how to present their works and to connect with audience like you shared with us. Thank you very much to share these good creative practices. So my question is the way you did such hybrid way, like the borderline digital production, the Resi or the Zoom theater will be or should be still relevant or has potentials after the post-pandemic time is over, since there are a lot of challenges such as small audience, lack of liveliness, and so on. So what would be the learning points for your theater for preparing for for the new normal?
It is a good question. I think we were very fast in producing these shows. So the first was produced within 7 days, and also one of the others. So I think we have to think more about it, because we were kind of panicking that we are losing our audience if we don't have something on the digital way, and we wanted to be in touch with them, and we wanted also, the actors were very nervous, because actors who are sitting at home doing nothing, they are getting mad, and so we produced very fast these shows, and I think we have to think more and to make it more specific, find more specific forms, and also to broadcast it more specific to audiences, which you have to develop. And this, there was no time for this, and not the structure for this. And I think this is something we have to develop also in an international context in the future.
Thank you for that. We have the next question is for Ian. Thank you very much for your argument. What is liveliness in performing arts? You mentioned about desire to connect. It is true, to connect between audiences, community, and artists is important. So my question is about relationship between desire of connecting and aesthetics of art. So connecting does or cannot make the art, I think. So do we need to redefine the meaning of aesthetics of arts, or do we need to re-question about what the art is and what the role of art is in the post-pandemic era? Thank you, and sorry for this too heavy question. Is it too heavy for you to answer?
It's a bit unfair, like you pack 5 questions in one. But I don't know. I'll just quickly share my thought. I take the first one. I think the desire to connect and the problem about aesthetic.
Yes.
I absolutely agree. That's a very valid question, because if we are talking about having that experience confined it in a 4 square mall, I have also had some theater experience joining some local theater group. They transform their own bedroom into a stage. So they try to also do some light rigging and fly over some props to show you the story. But I would say I wouldn't worry too much first on this level. I would really try to celebrate the reason why we want to connect you guys that way. Like why we want to have this hybridity. Why not just offline or entirely online? So for us as an art practitioner producer, I think we really need to narrow that down, like really explain to ourselves why we have to have that collective experience across the world, different time zone, make that effort, make that happen, because we want to witness that magic moment. And maybe that magic moment is a sort of spiritual support, or it's a sort of way out to a certain issue that we all experience now. Another thing is more from an intellectual angle, not just aesthetic, but also the very reason of desire to connect is not just to find support, but also finding a way to move forward. Like if I'm feeling stuck in my bottleneck, just like some of the online courses that I joined for meditation, I felt that's very beautiful, very ritualistic, very aesthetically well curated, and it's 6 hours. And this could easily be a very beautiful artful journey, but it's branded in like a mental health journey during COVID time. So in that case, there's no specific aesthetic to talk about. It's just the tutor, just the sound of their voices, and the script, and the well-structured journey that they take all the audience to go through. So I guess it really boils down to the principle.
They brand it that way. Is it for that the fact that they can charge more money? Oh, just kidding. All right. We have a final question. It's for all of you guys. Okay, I'm just gonna read it. It is interesting to learn a number of examples you shared. You're talking about a lot of about the changes in the content of theaters, but I think it would be good if you could also tell us what kind of relationship theaters should have with society in the post-pandemic era, and what responsibilities they should have in the era of transformation. I'd like to start with Doki, if you don't mind.
Well, maybe the change began before the pandemic. So there's desire of audience, which is quickly changing. So I've been personally thinking that desire of audience is changing so fast. So people visit the theater, they view performance. In Korea, there's a generation, so-called MZ generation, and they are younger people who are using the media outlets, and they are viewing the performances in different ways. I think this is also being incorporated into how performances and theaters meet audience. There are values we need to sustain, but some values may need to be changed in the future. I think there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's about expanding. The old and the new can have contact point, can meet each other. I think it's important to have where it meets, where the old and the new can encounter each other. And the pandemic has expedited this process. It can take a decade, but now things are taking place within a year. What will take place in the future? What will be the change in the future? Are we going to change? Are we going to keep the same values? I think these are some questions to ask. There are technical changes and there are performances, and yeah, I think there are a lot of questions to ask.
Thank you, Doki. Since I just get a warning of the time is running short. So for Ian and Alma, can you just like very briefly answer a question, probably within 1 minute, and then so we can wrap it up for today. Thank you.
I agree. What Doki just mentioned, the timescape really just like wrapped around so quick around us now. I think the question did talk about responsibility, right? I think there is a role of advocacy that art agency needs to do. The arts can, of course, self-reflection, meditate or sublimation, but that self, I think, needs a push, that from the self to a collective, how one's desire or becomes some sort of a value sharing, and you could build your community. So this community to the institute, like Art Center, not just an audience, not just the relationship between an audience and a cultural institute, but as a platform for community with shared value, they could all thrive and find support and move forward from an art experience. So I guess that's what I mean by giving that push and that advocacy role.
Thank you. How about you, Almut?
In the German-speaking landscape, theater landscape, there are a lot of questions are now very, very present, like the question of diversity, of anti-racism. So we talk a lot about this, and all these questions have to be discussed in our theaters. And I think that the COVID pandemic made these discussions quite more aggressive, and because everyone was so nervous and had to think we have to take care about this time. We are not playing to solve all these questions, and I think this is impossible. It needs time, and it also needs reflection, and we have to work on to invite everyone in our society to enter the theater, that it's not an elitary system. I think this is the main issue, and there's one positive thing now that we can offer cheaper seats now, as the older people are not showing up so much, so we have premieres with lots of young people now, and so it's changed the atmosphere at our premieres a lot, and this is something which is really, really good now for us also, besides the problems we have.
That's encouraging. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for your generous sharing on all the 3 great panelists. I'd also like to thank our curator for bringing everything together for today, Hee-Jin, and the hard work of our interpreters and also the great tech team. Thank you so much, everyone. So today is a PAMS Day 1. The online programs continues to October the 14th. So do make most of it and make connections and tuning in sessions. And yeah, just enjoy your time meeting new and old colleagues. I hope to see you very soon, hopefully in person. Okay. 감사합니다. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.